Assalamu alaikum. Hey, it's Nyla, Coach Nyla.
Assalamu alaikum, it's Coach Fatimah.
We are behind the scenes. Welcome on our new program on marriage, communication mastery.
Good job.
Have to remember that.
Right.
So yes, we are behind the. Well, you guys are behind the scenes. You get a behind the scenes look at what we have in store for you guys on communication in marriage.
Yeah.
And polygyny as well.
Right. So, scary word. That's a scary word, but we're going to have some fun here. Make sure you bring something to take notes with. We welcome everybody here. Glad to be live.
Yes, make sure you have some questions because we're going to do a Q&A session later on. Oh, excuse me. Q&A session. So make sure you can either email your questions or type them at the bottom, in that email area down there. Make sure you have that. What else do we have?
What else? And just know we're going to be moving about at certain times, and just stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of good information, good content. And welcome.
It's not just us either. The
No.
Join us in a second.
Right. Take over. We didn't take over.
So something else I was thinking about. Okay. Oh, communication. Why it's important, right?
Right.
So communication. I look at it as kind of like the foundation, right?
Yes.
It can make or break a relationship.
Exactly. And you have to build communication on solid ground.
Yes.
And you have to make sure that if you don't do that, it's just absolutely detrimental. And you'll hear us talk a lot about permission to communicate with each other effectively, because you can have that really, I've seen some have some really bad communication, and I've been guilty of that myself. So
now you guys can see I'm rocking this with my co-wife. So it's going to be hubby and co-wives. We're doing this thing. We're rocking it like this because we're collabing together. We're doing this thing because usually you don't see it like that. You'll see there'll be programs where it talks about polygyny, it talks about communication, talks about marriage communication, but you don't see everybody who's involved, or you don't see the total family dynamic for the most part.
And that's so important because everybody has their own experiences and their own sides. And I think it's so important for everybody to be heard. And we have to allow ourselves to let somebody else's experience be heard, especially within the family.
Exactly.
Dynamic.
So
that's so important.
You're going to hear different things about how we communicate amongst each other, with each other, how communication was at the beginning, how communication is now, how it got better over time, and with work and patience and practice and all that other great stuff. You're going to get some best practice tips.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Things as far as that, how to communicate effectively in your marriage, with whether you're the initial wife, subsequent wife, or anything down the line.
And co-parenting too. That's so important to have really powerful communication with all three parents. Now, some things don't involve me, but they might indirectly involve our children, because our children are siblings. So it would be great to communicate on that level, and not have division.
Right. And we're going to talk about that
big
too,
on that.
Which is interesting. I saw a post today on Facebook that asked about how important it is to develop a working relationship or a friendship with your co-wife.
Right.
To us, it's very important. And I just think just in general, it's very important when it comes to the co-parenting part, like you said, when it comes to, if you want the best possible outcome, the best possible solution, we're a family,
right?
It's one big family. Yes. My co-wife has her marriage with our husband. I
Right.
have my marriage with our husband. But when it all comes down to it, we're one big family.
Yeah.
We're one big family, and we learn together. We celebrate together.
Right.
We do a lot of other things together.
Go to Jumu'ah together, have fun
Jumu'ah
together.
have fun together. Even though our homes, our households are separate, we still come together, and we still
Right.
come together to communicate about anything, whether it's good stuff or whether it's some
Right.
of the hard.
Sometimes we have
Stuff.
children together, and,
Yeah.
and it's not always, oh, they did a great job. Sometimes
Yeah.
we have to manage their communication, because that's another thing. I have adult children. Coach Nyla has adult children. Well, you have one.
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's okay.
Time will pass and you go, oh my
One day.
God, everybody's grown. But
One day.
and that's important because they communicate differently
Right.
than the littles,
Yes.
I like to call them. So
Yes.
you'll find yourself having different
I call them the
conversations.
big heads.
Right. So if there's an issue, we'll come to that too.
Mhm.
I'll, do my best to speak on my experiences of having daughters that are grown-ups, and their questions and their communication is different
Yeah.
than, my 6-year-old. So
Right.
that's
right.
important too, to always remember your grown-up children, that their experience within your family, and being indirectly impacted by your marriage is important to have really healthy communication with them, because their conversations change as they get older.
Right.
They'll ask some scary stuff.
And another thing is, when it comes to communication, because they see how you communicate, children see that.
Yeah, they
If
see
you have
it.
children in your marriage, or if you have children in your marriage, whether it's between one or both, or the multiple households or multiple marriages, I guess you
Right.
want to say, you have to understand that your children watch you. They watch,
Right.
whether we want to believe it or whether we see it or not, they see how you communicate with one another. They see how you
Yep.
communicate amongst each other. They will, whether we know it or not, our children watch how Coach Fatimah and I communicate amongst
Yes.
each other.
And they watch the people that watch us communicate.
Yes, they watch that more
My
than we
grown-up
do.
daughters watch the people that watch us communicate. And they look to see if somebody's, be shady or liking the way you and I communicate. So,
It's very important.
Yes.
Communication is very important. It's the milestone, and
the foundation.
the Mr. is
There
here.
it is.
Yeah, part of being behind the scenes is being behind the camera. Nevertheless, peace. Assalamu alaikum. I see obviously the women are letting you know some of the basics, and we are behind the scenes. So I'm just talking to you, and I know, listen, if you're watching this from Facebook Live, after this first section, we're actually going to get into module 1. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, that's going to get cut off. That's you. If I'm pointing to you and you see our eyes looking directly at you, you would be cut off. Okay, and it's nothing personal, but
Right.
if you want to interact with question and answers directly with us, it's better to go to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/MCM. Not Man Crash Monday. Nope. That's for marital communications mastery. So outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/MCM is where the entire filming for today in our first module is going to occur. So that's where you want to go ahead and go to be able to, again, communicate with us, or you can send us an email, support@outstandingpersonalrelationships.com, to ask any questions or whatever comments there. Now, as for you, you're good to go. All right, so we're going to be looking at this main camera, and I'm back here trying to make things happen. And, the first day may be the worst day, but we're good to go. And again, we're excited with what we're going to share with you. We have an agenda and everything set up on the page that you can download. You'll see what we're talking about. There's a space for comments and everything else and streaming. So again, feel free to plug in. Feel free to share this page, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/MCM. Other people that want to step their communication game up to really become better, then share it with them. I mean, if you're able to make it and stay the whole time, that's perfect.
Great.
If not, make sure you are on our email list. Okay, we're not going to have a replay of this again. This is going to be sold for hundreds of dollars at either the end of this summer or early fall for this course, but we want to give it to you live. I mean, here we're creating it live. We have the technology to do so. Feel free again to plug in, ask questions, comments, concerns,
Right.
and go from there. Now, just to lay some basics, some best practices. Trust a short pencil over a long memory. And all that simply means is if you can take notes, not driving, working out, jogging, something like that, then try to take some notes. If you like to write, or if you like to type,
Right.
but take some notes that you can go and refer back to on salient points for you. All right. And even it's funny because many different studies show that even if you don't revisit those notes, just the simple kinesthetic act of typing or writing that physical part of your body helps your brain actually process and remember it even more. So take that action versus trying to remember everything, because we know we can recall like after a day, maybe 5 to 10% of something that we learned the prior day. Hence repetition is the mother of learning and the mother of skill. Okay, so that's the very first thing I like to recommend. Of course, when you're learning something new or you're just going deeper into something, you may get a deeper insight as you grow and as you change. So communication, that's the topic of the day. It's broad, it's very general. What we're gonna do is dive deep into certain specific areas, mainly with yourself, beginning with yourself, because that's where it begins. And then it expands from that point to your intimate relationships. If you're married, your spouses, or also with your children, your family, your loved ones, that could be muted or cut off. You were behind the scenes, so you know there may be some kinks in the armor a little bit. But as we move forward, it's good. So we're going to start here and we're going to expand. All right. Where's your phone?
My phone's there. My phone's on airplane mode.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. It now it's on. Is it airplane?
It should be. I don't even.
You don't want to have any phone issues,
Where did that come from?
stuff like that. Any notifications coming through?
No, it's not me. I don't use that one.
Could be
I
mine.
don't use that notification.
Mine's all do not disturb, but it could be it's an app that'll let come through. It could be.
It's not me, sir.
It could be me.
What's you?
But I can't put it on airplane mode. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so again, communications thing today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back by the computer, make sure these other settings are going on. Then we're going to start with our very first section, which is all three of us really discussing and going into detail a little bit deeper on why it's important. Some breakthroughs that we've had in our lives that maybe you could relate to, and you can recall different events that have happened in your life. To have some breakthroughs, and then we're going to start pretty much at the beginning. We're going to start at level 0, if you will, with me jumping into the modules. So I'm going to step back behind the camera. These ladies will continue really kind of talk about different communication breakthroughs, different times and parts of their lives where they were observing. They were talking about children, how they observe and how they watch and how they learn and so on. So they can maybe share some personal experiences of what you remember, or something that was a shifter of an idea or a thought or whatnot in your life. And then I'll be back in a couple moments.
All right. All right. Hey. The brothers are in stereo. Again, behind the scenes. It's time for just in case for prayer. So that.
Yeah. I'm powering this one. I'm powering it off just in case.
Okay.
Phones have a mind of their own. They communicate when you don't want them to.
It's behind the scenes.
Communication.
This is what it is. You'll hear sirens maybe, or something that might distract you. But let's jump into, we were talking about this earlier. It's funny. I was talking about one of my daughters who's an adult, and there was a lack of communication for some people, or their assumption, or how they perceive the dynamic of in our individual marriages. And my daughter was irritated this particular day, and she said, people don't think you're around, or they think you all are divorced or whatever, and they mix you guys up all the time, and nobody knows. And I said, you know who your parents are. I'm your mother, and that Abu is your father. And if somebody else does not know that wasn't her fault. But as someone in her 20s, her early 20s, she's able, I said, if something doesn't make you comfortable, you can sway that conversation. You can even say, I know who my parents are. You don't have to have an attitude. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be rude, because we didn't raise her that way. But she was taken aback. But she could control that atmosphere. And I wanted her to know that you have the power to either not engage in a conversation. You can say something like, I have to be somewhere. I can't talk about this right now. And the children that are their children, because she's much younger than me, but the young adults in our family have to know that people are going to come with questions that may make you uncomfortable temporarily. That's important.
Right.
Because let me tell you something. I've had people ask me some of the craziest things, and what do they say? I didn't sign up for that class.
Right.
So I will shut it down in a minute. But when you're somebody that's young and you're not used to that attention, it can be very off-putting.
Yeah.
But our kids have to be armed with, the skills to like navigate that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of that comes from us training them and teaching them and them watching what we do and things like that. Here's the deal. If you guys see how Fatimah and I communicate with each other, because we're talking about communication, we communicate pretty dang on good.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, we do. I agree. Because I've had some terrible communication with other people, and that's all right.
And I know people are going to look and they're like, oh, I wish, I would like for, my relationship to be like that with my co-wife, or, how do you get there and everything like that? Have you always been there? Have you always been to that part? Anything like that? Short answer, no.
Right.
It just wasn't. And, just, being a little transparent when it came to the point where I was on a breakthrough of this beautifulness that we have going on. Yes, I made up a word, beautifulnulness.
There you go.
That is.
Don't come for us in the comments about that.
Right. What we have going on right now. I was almost to the point of like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want it. I don't.
Yeah.
I wanted it before.
Let me tell you something real quick about me. I can be rough. Okay. So sometimes you know what it was? I had to make a decision to be okay. What's beautiful about the journey is that when you grow up and you grow up, you say to yourself, is what I'm doing affecting just me, or is it branching out and affecting other people? And when I figured out that my actions for me, for a long time, ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is not bliss. I found that out too. Ignorance will have you sitting there looking dumb, stupid, crippled, and blind when you could really do something about your situation. You got to like free yourself. And I decided to let myself out of mental jail. And I knew I have sons that are 13, 12, and 6. And when I saw that it took some time, y'all. We didn't pop out 6 boys at once, but it took time in between their ages. And when I saw that my 6-year-old wants to play with his brothers, that is more important to me than my happiness on going, you know what? I don't really want to talk to her. I had to make a decision
I always
to say
wanted
yes.
to talk to her.
Of course you did. Anybody know me know that. Anybody know me. My friends are going, she sure did. She wanted, but Fatimah was harder to like this table. But when I saw a friend of mine, and I will always be forever grateful for her maturity. She went through a horrible divorce. It was all over the community, and it took her down. But her husband had not a subsequent wife, just a second marriage with no polygyny involved. And she told me that they had a son. So this little boy became siblings with her children. Huge age difference, huge. And she said to me, Fatimah, those kids that your husband has with your co-wife are siblings to yours. That's important. Because polygyny, and I always say this to women moving forward from that point, polygyny is not just happening to you. Singular marriage is not just happening to you. It's happening to somebody else. So when my actions start to take effect on the people that are within my family and my children, and I can do something about that, it's time to grow up. And it's time to grow.
That part with the communication with ourselves, when we communicate with ourselves and say, you know what? the questions that we ask ourselves. What type of questions are we asking ourselves? Are we asking ourselves the good questions, the positive questions, or are we asking ourselves crippling questions, crappy questions, or whatever the case may be? Whatever questions we ask ourselves, the answers that we get are going to shape our lives. So we can ask ourselves poor questions, it's going to shape our lives poorly. The answers that we give will be poor answers because we're asking poor questions. We ask positive questions, we're going to get the positive answers that's going to promote us in our lives and not demote us in our lives.
Exactly. I agree.
On the topic of questions, again, post your questions, or you want to remain anonymous and all of that, which is fine. Email us at support@outstandingpersonalrelationships.com. We'll start with 2 questions because she mentioned questions, positive questions and negative questions, right? But it's to give examples of what that means. Like a negative question that may not even have the intent behind it being negative. Why is this happening to me? For example, all right, why is it happening to me? It's life. All right. Pain, challenge, deaths, happiness, all of these different things affect everyone. Like my mentor Jim Rohn say, the winds of life roll on us all. We feel it. You know what I'm saying? But it's the way. Wow. I y'all be drinking some water before I get to the module. It's the way you set your sail to get towards your destination that determines the difference. And that gives that control. But there are 2 questions we can address before the next section. One question is, how do you, or let me go with them in sequential order. The first question that a young lady asked was, what if you don't want to communicate with your co-wife? Is it okay, or do you have to, or, what if you don't want to communicate with her, period? What's the deal?
I don't know if y'all saw that. My face got screwed for a minute.
And I'm assuming, the assumption is she didn't say if she was a subsequent wife or if she was considered the initial or the first wife or what have you. But so either you can answer.
I'll start with that. Like Nyla was saying, she always wanted to talk to me, but what I had to do is figure out, you have to weigh a lot, and you have to figure out what is the benefit for us talking and what are the pros and cons. So what is going to happen if I don't talk? What is going to happen to my marriage, hers, and our children? What is that going to affect them mentally? And they'll see it. Oh, they don't talk. And they'll get bigger. These kids grow and they get bigger and they ask some scary questions. And they will ask you, especially our children being Muslim. Muslims will, if they're doing their job and what they're supposed to do for each other, they will call you out on your mess. So they know that you're supposed to communicate for the betterment of your family. So it's important to shape these little people in our lives and the big ones so that they're mentally healthy. The last thing that I want to do is give them a picture of a dysfunctional polygynous marriage. And then I carry that, and this is the legacy of the family. Because to me, that's dysfunctional and that's so selfish. When you don't talk, it's so selfish to me. Now, unless you all are punching each other in the face, and I hope you're not doing that, there's been some things where some people do put their hands on each other. For me, I don't understand that. And Nyla doesn't come from that. She's just not even, her nature is just not even that way. So I just think it's so healthy to talk.
Yeah.
Now, as the man in a relationship, this is not above or outside of my concern. Okay. Because there's an idealized picture that a person may want. She may have her idealized picture, she may have hers, but I have to share mine and what I think it should be. Okay. Because you can't force anyone to like anyone else. True. You can't force a friendship at all. But as a man, I also have to make sure that if I'm going to marry again, I'm going to marry somebody that's not drama.
Right.
That's not looking for, putting it in, all the rest of that stuff. So again, the question has to think about, all right, what if you just don't want to talk to them? I don't know if they cause a lot of mess or cause a lot of drama, or that may be something imagined in the person's head.
And we hope.
But I know that ideally, as I spoke with my wife Fatimah, I'm like, you know, I would prefer, we're one family. I'm not going to force you to talk to anybody and go. I'm not going to do that. You don't have to, because that's not required as part of our deen or our religion. That's what I would like, but I'm not going to just force or put any unnecessary pressure on you.
But
Right.
we were cordial.
No question, because both of them, neither of them come from drama and mess and all that type of stuff. They don't. I'm not going to marry that type of woman. I'm not interested in that. I'm not that type of dude. That's not what attracts me. That's not my personality type. Their personality types.
Right.
So I wasn't going to do that type of friction. You know, of course, there's normal, natural stuff and emotions and feelings and things like that. Like they said, it took a while to get to this point.
Because even when I brought it that I want to talk to her, like, I can't make anybody.
No,
it don't have to be. I mean, and it was like I can't make anybody do this or like. And I know that we can't make our children do the things we want them to do. They still got to do.
But you know what? Speaking to that, that's important. And also, she wanted to talk to me, so I will never tell anybody anything contrary to that. But I also, something that was so important was that I was thinking polygyny was happening to Nazir. It was something for him. So I didn't need to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's not true, because she was trying to add value to all of us, not just him. And when I found out that she wasn't trying to take anything from me, then it got better, because the assumption is, trying to take something from me. She's going to go. And I think that in itself is just violent, because you just keep compounding assumption over and over again. And we've done videos about assumption, but that's so important to know that, you know, if somebody is reaching out to you and they want to talk to you, I think about, I could have been released easier mentally had I had a conversation with her sooner. So that's,
well, I'm happy that it is now. However, I remember, you know, it being said that, okay, it's not mandatory that you guys be the best of friends and everything like that. And I understood that, but in my brain, and what I wanted, my ideal, like you said, the ideal thing was like, this is what I looked at. I was like, oh, I'm going into this family. I have this sister who knows about Islam, and we're going to be friends. It's going to be great. Our kids are going to be cool. My daughter's going to have sisters. It's going to be, yay, big party. All great.
I'm sorry. I say that on a live public platform. Girl, I'm sorry.
Like, oh, okay, that's not it.
I love that about her though. She's so optimistic, and I'm like, nobody said optimistic. She must be crazy. And I found out she wasn't crazy.
I'm crazy.
And it's something that's very healthy for her to do, to think the way. You know what I found out at the time? I'm not saying that we're trash now, but at the time she was a better Muslim than I was, because I thought there was something more diabolical. And I think oftentimes with it now, I've heard some third wives coming and the second one's like, no. And she thinks it's diabolical, but sometimes the first one thinks that too. Yeah.
That leads into the second question. A young lady asked, how do you combat and deal with the rumors of, this subsequent wife, second, third, what have you, she's just on record coming in to destroy the family, breaking down the foundations, and dealing with rumors in your community and all of that type of thing, especially if it ends in a divorce?
Oh,
I guess
that's interesting that you said that part. Is that the end of the divorce part?
Right. Can't talk to that necessarily.
Yeah, now one, yikes. However, I've seen some stuff like that too. However, in my situation, how I dealt with it, not easy at first. It hurt a lot because I'm a feeling type of person, and I'm like, people like me. That's how I look. I'm like, people like me.
Yeah, I don't want to say that, but I can see when they say that about her. I usually say people don't like me.
Why aren't people like me?
I see that.
Yes, but I was caught in everything from a home wrecker, a snake,
A thing. That was one of my heard.
You know,
like a thing.
these
The girl
different
got a
things. It
name.
was really cool because I'm like, and it was some people that I thought liked me because I liked them and I spoke with them and everything like that. And I never knew about me because I was not the real wife. You know, all of that other good stuff that, you know, people say to hurt. And excuse me, it hurt me at first, but it took me being in personal development. That's reading the positive things, listening to, you know, good stuff. Excuse
Give some
me.
examples. What do you mean?
Reading things like Personal Power, or Personal Power wasn't a book. Personal Power was a program with Tony Robbins. Anthony Robbins has a program, 30-day program, Personal Power. Happy for No Reason by Marcy Shimoff. Things like that. I have a library full of different books like that. And just being immersed in that, having the positive reinforcement, you know, from my husband, like, you know, I married you because I married you. You know, it wasn't. And then I remember him also telling me, I didn't marry you to have another Fatimah. He's like, I have a Fatimah, you know, she, you know,
and
you know,
honey,
so
a mess.
Yeah, so it was these things where
it's like a redo Fatimah. That's what they. I'm like, oh, what?
Yes, people used to be like, I'm coming in here to try to be her and to try to take from her. And
you didn't want to be me back then.
And that wasn't the thing. But it took studying. It took just having a bigger picture in my mind of what I wanted my family to look like. And I saw the potential. I saw that one day we are going to speak. One day it's going to be, you know, she's going to see me for who I really am, because I knew who I was. So you have to be confident in you. It's going to hurt. People are going to say some things. People are probably going to, because they don't know you. And some may not even want to get to know you. They may not get to know you. What they think about you is none of your business. Right. What they think about none of your business. What you think about yourself, what you know about yourself. Your husband married you for a reason, and if you are a good person and your co-wife sees that and he's a good person, through time, study, practice, and patience, you guys are going to have a great relationship. I mean, those things,
you got to have the intention of want that.
When you have those things in place, it'll eventually happen.
Right. Okay, for those who are married, what about your ideas regarding a divorce?
A divorce.
Because we all know people who have been divorced and then they
get
this label, it's homework, of course it wasn't going to work out.
You know what? I've never been divorced. I've been married for 24 years, but I have friends that have been divorced, and maybe Coach Nyla can speak on this. And I know it to be true. No woman goes in a relationship and wants it to fail.
Right.
So they don't go. The goal is not to be a single mother, a divorced single mother, and struggle your way through life. That I didn't want that. And I'm not the easiest to live with. Honey, 24 years with me, you got all the stripes you need. You're a G at that point. But I didn't get married to get divorced. So my friends that were divorced and were single mothers with 2 kids said to me, Fatimah, that's not the look. That's not the goal. So it wasn't, let me, be in a relationship with somebody, wreck that, and then marry Fatimah's husband. And that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of people look at that way. And I think if you do look at polygyny that way, you cheapen the whole thing.
And I think that's the thing when you talked about when it comes to that is in divorce. You as a subsequent wife or a wife coming in and the other marriage ended in divorce, that most likely had nothing.
They had some junk before you came. That's the way I look at it.
The question was based on the subsequent wife coming in and then the subsequent wife getting divorced.
That part. Oh, okay. That was different.
I lost that.
I looked at it wrong.
Wife coming in.
But the second wife,
with all those rumors and everything else, and then that actual marriage ended.
And then the divorce. Yes. Okay. That I've not personally experienced that, but
right.
Yes. A lot of times it deals, to me, what I've seen, it has to do with the husband And it has to do with the subsequent wife too. Sometimes there are subsequent wives that just can't take the drama. They can't. They feel that they can't, and they don't stick and stay because they don't see the bigger picture. And a lot of times, not being able to see the bigger picture does come from lack of support from the husband to show them that, you know, you are important to me. Yes, she's important to me. You are important to me too. And we're going to make this work. We're going to handle this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this together because we are a team. When the team dynamic fails, when you feel like you're doing it on your own, that is usually the cause for divorce. That's usually the cause for a lot of things to crumble when you're feeling like you're doing things on your own. And that comes from any perspective. If a husband feels like he's doing it on his own, if the initial wife feels like she's doing it on her own, if anybody feels like they're doing it on their own by themselves, and there's no help, no support, or no, what's the word I'm looking for, where it's no feedback, that's usually what causes relationships, that breakdown of a strong foundation, a strong marriage foundation.
Indeed. And we're going to end, I'm going to talk really on this part as well, because as she mentioned, it goes with the husband, because it does. Many times brothers have the idea, this whole fanciful idea, things just going to work out. She's going to have to just deal with it, or she's going to have to get in her place, get in where you fit in, and aren't emotionally equipped to deal with the situation, or emotionally equipped or committed to the situation. All right. Because unlike women, some men actually, they don't care. They're indifferent to whether or not the marriage will succeed. There are those who prey upon women. Okay. And not pray the way they're supposed to pray. It's the PRAY is what we should be doing. But there are those who PREY on women. So they think more of themselves and their ability to do things. And again, we all fall short. We're humans. It is what it is. But for those who don't protect the reputation of their women and the wives or anything else, you know, a lot of the fault can lie with them, because usually they're still within the same community, or what occurs is that the husband isn't willing to deal with many of the temper tantrums, the drama, the threats, and all this type of stuff coming from his initial wife. We'll call it, let's say, first wife. I'm just stick with the numbers and make it easy. First is mean married to first, second or third means, you know, after that time. So you married to a first wife and she throw a temper tantrum, threatening to take away the kids. I'm going to do this, or I'll go here and there and blah, blah, blah. Put all the business all in the tree, because you know, you are who you are, and people don't like polygyny anyway. So they go and they crumble under that pressure. Okay. And now all of a sudden you marry someone else that understands polygyny and they're willing to kind of shift things around, but now you just left that like roadkill. All right. So as a man, you need to make decisions and weigh yourself up on whether or not you're able to handle it and man for the situation. Because if you get involved with polygyny, you have to be more than twice the man you already are. Okay. So if you're not, if a man is not involved in some personal, emotional growth, or really learning communication and so on and so forth like that, you're starting without a plan. And as we know, the old adage that states, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But when you do that, now you're doing it with another person's life. And more likely than not, I've seen it in situations where children have been born from that. So it's more than just that person's life. Now you have children, okay, with this person who you're no longer with and who was already looking for you for the strength and ability to be able to hold on to this position. So much of it does go back to the man. So all the rumors, all the kind of other stuff usually is weak men. Okay, so you know, we have to take responsibility on that as men ourselves to be able to, one, not just fancifully, what's my right for polygyny, or I can marry more than one wife, and or I have the financial means, or I have this and I have that, but still you're not dealing with the other things when it comes to emotions and when it comes to societal, because if we are the protectors and maintainers, then we must protect and maintain. And protecting also involves dealing with the reputation of a woman. So even if you part, even if you divorce, then it's still done in an honorable fashion. Okay. It's not just, but you are making that decision as the man. Right. You're not letting someone else make that decision for you. Your mother, your father, another wife, your kids, you make that decision as a man. You got into something, and as all our parents said, you made your bed, you gotta lay in it. You gotta lay in it. You know, and as good friend Shadid Muhammad, Hafidullah, says, you gotta stand in your discomfort.
Yeah.
You know, most times I find that brothers who have gone through these divorces haven't been willing to stand in their discomfort. They just out.
They fold.
It's
Right.
ouch.
They
It's a little
fold.
painful. Or I've been patient already 30 days. Like 30 days. You need to be
Oh.
patient more than 30 months
That's
sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it could take some years if it's worth it.
Right.
But at the same time, determining if it's worth it is really up to that family
Right.
and what that dynamic is. So extremely important because it does lie with the man. If you're bringing somebody to the table, to the family, somebody trying to marry that's not even on, you know, that's detrimental, that's going to bring a deficit to what you're already working, what you're already building, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. But if you bring something that's good and then you decide to just lower yourself or not raise your standards or become twice the man you need to be, then you set yourself up for failure from the get-go. All right. Hey, that's a man
I
thing.
agree.
That's, you know, it is what you can deal with somebody that might have lip or might go off or might have all this stuff and all this emotional baggage and trauma that they're dealing with, and you're dealing with your own trauma, then you marry somebody else. Okay, this still got to be worked on. Now all of a sudden this person roars more, becomes a lion and strong, they threaten and all this and that and fighting you and everything else. Then it's like, okay, well, let me just get rid of that over there. But maybe they kind of showed you who they really were. Maybe you divorcing the wrong one. I don't know, not in this situation. But as a man, you need to make the right decision. You know, because now you're accountable and you're responsible for the lives.
Speak on it.
Okay, so first, y'all have any closing comments for the first section? Now we go from, again, this is some of the behind the scenes stuff, some Q&A, but we want to jump into module one. I'm going to get up and shift some stuff around and really go to the next section. So if you're watching this on Facebook Live, you want to migrate to outstandingpersonrelationships.com/MCM for marital communications mastery as we begin module 1 shortly. And I'm not going to be talking behind the scenes, you know, stuff like that, because we're going to have to edit stuff, get everything ready. Are there any closing comments you ladies want to make?
Mine left me. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
you kind of like dropped the mic on that one. I don't.
That's too hard to follow up. That was good. I give it to the brother. Alhamdulillah.
All right, good stuff. Perfectly answer those questions. And we're going to go ahead and move some stuff around. You can stay here and check us out on the page where you are. I'll check for any more questions and stuff like that. And we'll be ready to roll probably within the next 10 minutes. So if you take a break, check on your notes, whatever, feel free to do so. Now I'm in my mind like, what I'm going to do for those of you who are on the page, instead of, I don't have I'm today the first day, so it's going to be the worst day of the thing. So I'm not fully prepared with this other software. Otherwise, I would switch it and show some other B-roll footage until we come back. We're not going to do that, so you probably hear us talking. And what I'm thinking of is just covering up the camera so you can't see it, so to make stuff happen. See y'all in a minute.
I need to
Peace.
not be
All right.
heard though.